All right, so Pete, so we've known each other for a few years. We see each other a lot of Saturday mornings in advanced self-defense class.
Right.
But you've also shared with me you've had quite the career in law enforcement. Do you mind sharing some of your experience with us?
Sure. I've been in law enforcement for 31 years. I retired from an agency in Montana, came to Arizona, retired into a chief's job,
Yeah.
and was the chief of police in two different agencies for about 12 years. So almost 32 years total in law enforcement.
Now, the thing that's really stood out to me is that law enforcement officers and even first responders in general have an interesting career. You'll experience things within the first few years that the general population will not see, witness, or experience in an entire lifetime. And some of it has to do with bringing on more stress, anxiety, hypervigilance, poor sleep, and even pain and inflammation just from the physical nature of the job. Do you mind sharing some of your perspective or insight on that as a leader in law enforcement?
Sure. Yeah, the big thing for me, I did a ride along when I was 21 years old.
Okay.
And it was just one of those where I think we got in a pursuit that night. If it wasn't that night, it was the second night that I came back for the second ride along.
Yeah.
And, you're going 85, 90, 100 miles an hour. And it's like, wow, they pay me for this? I want to do this. So getting to be able to do that, and then your whole career is based on that. You become an adrenaline junkie. You become that guy who loves kicking doors. I love being first in the door. I love going and doing whatever needs to be done in order to solve the situation. And that does come with some some opportunities to rumble around a little bit sometimes and occasionally get hurt. And
Yeah.
you always think about it afterwards. So you're constantly thinking about that call, or that person you helped, or that body you saw, or that crash, or
Yeah.
so you get a little thinking about dwelling on those things, and you always want to be top notch. You always want to have the best. You want to be able to handle that situation, so you take care of yourself physically, or you think you're taking care of yourself physically.
Yeah.
And that you end up doing martial arts, or you end up doing marathons, or you end up riding a bicycle for 200 miles a week, or you end up, one of those things to keep yourself, A, your stress down, B, your ability to sleep up,
Yeah.
and C, you're in shape for the next one that you have to do.
Yeah.
So as a result of that, pain in your feet, pain in your back, pain in your knees, pain in your shoulders from martial arts, pain in your hands from martial arts, all those things
Yeah.
add up.
Yeah. So what did you experience? So you've taken it over 30 days.
Yeah, it took me about 2 to 3 weeks to get into it, to notice a real difference.
Yeah.
But then just I'm not going to say the pain was gone, but the pain was diminished.
Okay.
Greatly diminished. So I was real happy with that. And it was helpful in relation to especially my shoulder pain.
I don't know if I like that where I'm sparring you still on Saturdays, but I almost want to keep you in that pain component. But I'm glad for you that it's reduced.
Throwing the left hook
Okay.
was really painful, and so I can throw the left hook a little better now, which is good. Not so much.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the marks I have on the right side of my face. Sounds like a lot of the main benefits you had were after several weeks of taking it regularly, correct?
Right. And I at one point I was thinking, man, I don't think this is working.
Yeah.
Because it was like I was like 9 days in and wasn't noticing any pain, and you told me, hey, it's going to take 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And about the middle of the third week, I started noticing, and I was like, I wasn't fighting, which is sometimes where my shoulder really hurts.
Yeah.
After throwing that left hook all the time. So I wasn't fighting. So I was thinking, oh, it's related to that. And then I came back, and I was like back in the gym, back sparring, and it was like, okay, I'm not noticing as much. So it's
awesome.
Really good in that respect.
Yeah, and it's very much what I had. I was on a car ride with an ex-professional athlete friend of mine, got out of the car slow, and he's like, "You got to try this." And it took me 3 weeks. I remember thinking, "Man, what did you do? Just sell me some snake oil?" But it was 3 weeks, and then I started feeling it was my knees and my right shoulder, big difference. So that's good. Now, was there anything else that you didn't expect to receive benefit to receive from taking CBD that you noticed?
So, two things that you had talked to me about. One, you talked to me about sleep, and I told you, hey, I sleep really well all the time anyway. It didn't.
Yeah.
But I'm not also, the last 12 years, I told you I was an executive, so it wasn't like I was working night shift anymore.
Yeah.
So I still sleep really well. I haven't noticed a change for sleep. But one thing that I did notice a big change for, and I didn't even realize I needed it, was the hypervigilance. You know, I'm 31 years in law enforcement. I'm never going to be comfortable sitting with my back to the restaurant door.
Yeah.
That's not going to be me ever again.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I have to be hawking that door all the time. I don't feel like everybody who comes in that door, I have to make an assessment of, hey, is that a good guy, a bad guy? Just not to be in condition white all the time, but to at least be able to get to condition yellow, because condition orange takes a lot of energy out of you and you don't deal well with it after so many years of it. So that was huge for me, is the reduction in hypervigilance.
Yeah. So experiencing more peace and even being able to be more present wherever you're at.
You know, and just like when you're in condition orange all the time, every time you go outside of your house, you don't want to go outside because it's just too much energy to do that. And now it's more like my wife will say, hey, let's go here and do this. And it's like, okay, I'm all right doing that. So yeah, just being present more for her.
That's tremendous. It's great to hear.
Yeah.
Right on. In 32 years of law enforcement, what prevented you from taking CBD earlier or from trying it?
Yeah, you know, it was, 3 years ago that you recommended I get hooked up with this, and I was like, yeah. You know, two things. One, as the chief of police, if you ever test dirty, you're going to be an embarrassment. You've embarrassed your name. And two, if you test dirty, that's the end of your career.
Yeah.
And so it was like, how do you correlate that? Is this a risk that I want to take?
Yeah.
And you know, you told me it was CBD and it was totally THC free. But what if there's a mistake? You know, what if that batch didn't? What if? That's what we do as cops. We what if ourselves to death. And so I was always resistant to do that.
Now, when you look at what THP does, so THP, they conduct 2 independent lab tests, so 2 totally different labs that indicate 0.00% THC on any of the tinctures, so any of the oils that we place under our tongue. And then they went further and they conducted 5-panel drug tests on actually active duty law enforcement. My brother ended up being one at 19 years, you know, so he's at risk at the end of his career. And they found that negative for any drugs, negative for THC. And that included both the rub as well as the tinctures for that. How important as a first responder or as a police chief going back into the position you just retired to is that information?
Yeah, very, very important. I can't put my name behind it. If there's an opportunity for somebody who watches a testimonial and says, hey, I want to try that, and then ends up ruining their career because of it, it's hugely important to me.
Yeah. Now, I know you've been on these products for more than 30 days. Did you take a 5-panel drug test?
I did.
And what were the results?
It was negative.
Negative.
Negative for THC, negative for everything. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Great to hear. So given your experience with these products, both you mentioned some of the reduction in pain, you mentioned some of the reduction in the hypervigilance, you know, why would you recommend THP first responder formulas to other first responders that are considering these products?
So that I think the big three, and you mentioned it, and I saw a big difference in two of the three. One, you mentioned sleep, and that, especially if a guy's still working shift work, I was fortunate I promoted out of shift work.
Yeah.
Two, for me, the biggest thing I wanted to see and I saw was a reduction in pain. And three, the thing that I didn't even realize I needed was the reduction in hypervigilance. So for those three reasons, certainly I recommend it.
So final question for you is, so for those that are considering taking CBD or THP Frontline and First Responder CBD as a first responder or frontline worker, what advice would you share with them?
Give it a shot. See what happens.